Hello friends, myself Advocate Abhishek Saxena along with Advocate Abhinav Saxena and Advocate Navneet Kumar, co-founding partners of Saxena's and Kumar Law Chambers, welcome you all in today's e-symposium on layers of criminal trial, practical aspects. Mr. Abhinav Saxena is an alumnus of Gujarat National Law University. Mr. Navneet Kumar and myself are alumni of Rajiv Gandhi National University of Law. We all are co-founders of PrecoLearn as well. Now, before I start, I would like to give a brief introduction about PrecoLearn. PrecoLearn is an initiative of Saxena's and Kumar Law Chambers, which is established in the form of an LLP, working in areas of legal consultancy, practical implication of law, litigation in various fields, and practical learning. PrecoLearn has a motto to holistically cover all practical aspects which are quite necessary in the professional world. It imparts and focuses on practical learning of subjects and thus acts as a bridge that fills the gap between knowledge of both theory and practical aspects through its various courses.
So before I introduce our worthy speaker, Mr. Rajat Bansal, I would like to give a brief introduction of the topic. Instead of saying introduction, I would like to say why this topic has been taken up for this e-symposium, the importance of layers of criminal trial. See, when we talk about criminal trial, what comes in our mind? It is crowded courtrooms, Criminal Procedure Code, Indian Evidence Act, or Indian Penal Code, right? But it is important to understand how to correlate and utilize it in the entire process. This is a practical correlation and conjoint tumultuous exercise, which is we called a trial process, a trial procedure. Okay, from the very report of commission of an offense until the judgment and bringing the offender to the justice, a criminal trial is divided into various layers from the reporting of an offense to the until the judgment, which may be sometimes overlapping also. An accused is an innocent until proven guilty, as we all know. So it is important for the young lawyers to properly understand this procedure, as there are actions and practice of every litigating lawyer that may cost a life of a human being. Sorry to interrupt you, but it's a request to all the participants to not to present their screens. That will disturb the entire process of this e-symposium. Okay. So, however, the criminal litigation is the core area of litigation. So automatically it becomes the major source of earning for all the litigating lawyers, fresh graduates, and also aspiring law students, right? So it is important to understand this process and practice it. That is why we are here to make it simple and convenient for you to understand the process. Now, there is one more question that comes into mind. Who is there that stands besides the victim, innocent, or the complainant to fight for justice? This question comes into my mind. The answer is the state. And how is it possible for the state to stand beside the innocent? It is through a machinery, that is criminal prosecution. So I would like to ask, who plays the pivotal role in this entire process of criminal trial and prosecution? It is the public prosecutor. So now I would like to introduce our worthy speaker, Mr. Rajat Bansal. He is assistant public prosecutor, currently performing his duties with all his vigor and with best performances for the past 5 years. And he has been the alumni of Rajiv Gandhi National University of Law for about 9 years of experience of litigation. He has faced various criminal trials and has a very wide exposure of litigation. And on a daily basis, Mr. Bansal faces double digits of criminal trial in the code of law as being an assistant public prosecutor. So, and there is one more important thing I would like to add, that when we are going to understand about criminal trial, it is important to understand about the investigation part also, which Mr. Bansal is going to produce in front of the participants. And with this note, I would like to hand over the entire session, the entire presentation to Mr. Bansal. Mr. Bansal, over to you.
Thank you, Mr. Abhishek. First of all, I would like to thank Mr. Abhinav, Mr. Abhishek, and Mr. Navneet, who has given me the opportunity and called me on this platform so that I can share few of my views with all of you. I am also a lawyer. Irrespective of this, that like I am appearing for the state on behalf of the state, for the complainant, for the victims, for the interest of justice in the court, and I cannot do the private practice. So before starting the topic, let's discuss what is the criminal jurisprudence in India and what is the constitutionality of CRPC. So basically, when we will talk about it, then we have to create the balance between two sectors of the society or the two interests. What are those two interests? First interest is the societal interest, and second one is the individual interest. What is the societal interest? As per the law, as per the Indian law, whenever one commits crime, that crime is not against the individual. Basically, that crime is against the society. Because that crime is against the society, to save the society, to give the protection to the society, we do not write the name of the victim as one party in the case. Rather, we write the name of the state. For example, anything happened with someone, then it will not be, the name of the case will not be A versus B. It will be state versus A. A means accused, state versus accused. So when the state is taking the complete responsibility of it, so the prosecutor is there to represent the state, to represent the victim or the complainant in the case. In addition to it, as I talked about the societal interest and the individual interest, every law should be constitutionally justified. Now, how CRPC is constitutionally justified? As you all know, Article 21 gives the right to life and personal liberty to everyone. So, when you will arrest an accused, then you will curtail the personal liberty of the accused. So, here two interests will come in conflict: societal interest and individual interest. Societal interest because something wrong had happened with the society. One accused had committed one crime against the society. And on the other side, that accused is an individual, he's a citizen of India, and he has also some rights as per the constitution. So to create the balance between both of them, the subject CRPC is there, the procedure is there. Like a small example, like fair trial is one of the example. The cross-examination of the witness, the legal aid to the accused, audi alteram partem, that is the maximum, audi alteram partem, no one can be condemned unheard. So fast-track courts, all these procedures are there, and no magistrate can pass any arbitrary order. So by doing all this, we will create the balance between the societal interest and the individual interest. So CRPC is constitutionally justified. Now let's start with the today's topic. Today, the topic is basically the criminal trial, but one cannot understand the criminal trial till the time you will not observe each and everything prior to the trial, how the investigation will be conducted, how it will start. So till the time you will not aware about these factors before the criminal trial, you can never succeed in the criminal trial. So let's start with the very grassroots or the very basic element of the criminal trial, FIR. So first we will discuss whether investigation can be started before registration of FIR, or investigation can only be started only after registration of FIR. What is zero FIR and what is the value of the FIR in the eyes of law? As you all know, section 154 deals with FIR. What do you mean by FIR? FIR is the first information report. Whatever the complainant will tell to the police official, that is the first information report. Now, whether investigation can be started before registration of FIR, the answer is yes. There is very big dilemma between in the minds of the public or in the minds of the young advocates that investigation cannot be started before registration of FIR. Let me give you the practical example of it. The case of Excise Act. What is Excise Act? Whenever a police official will apprehend accused with illicit liquor, then that accused will be charged with the Excise Act. So in Excise Act, as soon as the police official has seized the illicit liquor from the possession of the accused, the investigation will start from the very outset. So at that time, there is no FIR with the police officer, but he is still doing the investigation. He will seize the liquor. Thereafter, he will make the call in the police station. They will write the DD entry. After writing the DD entry, the investigating officer will come at the place of incident. He will start the investigation. He will write down the statement of that constable or head constable, whomsoever has seized the liquor. And thereafter, he will check the liquor. He will seal the liquor. He will seize the liquor. After doing all these processes, after preparing all these documents, he will write down one ruka and he will hand over that ruka to the constable, and that constable will go to PS and got the FIR registered. So now you can see FIR is registered after preparing few documents in the case. So the notion that FIR that investigation cannot be started before registration of FIR, that is completely wrong. So investigation can be started before registration of FIR. And the same example you can take of the Arms Act. When one accused will be apprehended with illicit, with any illegal gun or with any illegal weapon or with any knife as per the notification, then the investigation will start from the very moment when the accused has been apprehended by the police. So investigation can be started before registration of FIR. Now, what is zero FIR? As you all know, when any offense has been committed by the accused, then FIR will be registered in the jurisdiction of that police station. But suppose, right, the incident had taken place in Defense Colony, but right now you are in Greater Kailash at Delhi. So you have come to know about the incident, and that is a cognizable offense. Then immediately you will approach to the police station. You will approach to the police officials in the police station GK1 where you are residing, and you will give the information to the police officials, and they are duty bound to record it. No doubt the incident had not taken place in GK. The incident had taken place in Defense Colony, but the police officials at GK1 is duty bound to register the FIR, and they will give the name to that FIR as zero FIR, and they will send that FIR to the concerned police station of Defense Colony, as they cannot conduct the investigation in this case, but they are duty bound to write the or to record the FIR of the complainant. So this is what we call zero FIR. Now the next topic is the telephonic information. See, anything had happened with someone, and somebody made the call to the police that this had happened with me. For an example, I was going in my car somewhere and somebody hit my car. At that time, I will make the call at 100 number. Whether that will be a mount to the first information? Yes. As soon as I will give a credible information on telephone by calling 100 number or by calling direct to the PS, that is if that is a credible information, then that information can be converted into the FIR, and investigation can be started immediately after receiving that information. Sometimes, as you all have seen, for example, in a case of 279 Rash and Negligent Act and 304A causing death by rash and negligent act. What happens in this case? See, I was coming back to my home from my office. In between the way, I have seen that one incident had taken place. I'll call 100 number. I will give the information that I was crossing this bridge, or I was passing from here, and I have seen that one incident had taken place. Please come at the spot and check. And as soon as the police will come, the police will see that the victim has already died. So the information which I have given to the police officials on telephone, they will take it as the first information, and they will register the FIR on it, and they will start the investigation on it. So if the telephonical information is credible enough, then that can be converted into the FIR. If that information is cryptic, then that cannot be converted into the FIR, and investigation cannot be started on it. Now, the next part is, what is the evidentiary value of FIR? As you all know, FIR has no big value or the substantive value. It cannot be used as a substantive evidence. So for what purpose we can use the FIR? FIR basically can be used by the defense counsel for the contradiction, for the cross-examination, because this is the first information of the complainant. In addition to it, FIR can be act as a primary evidence, but there are circumstances when FIR can be act as a primary evidence. When FIR can be act as a primary evidence? Under Section 32 Indian Evidence Act, when the complainant or the victim has died after giving the information after registration of FIR, then that FIR can be considered as a dying declaration, and it is having then that FIR will become the primary evidence in the criminal trial. In addition to it, Section 27 Indian Evidence Act, if we can make any discovery out of that statement, then that statement is the primary evidence regarding the recovery. So otherwise, FIR has no evidentiary value, or it is not a substantive evidence, but under Section 27 and 32 Indian Evidence Act, it can become the primary evidence. Later on, what are the consequences of delay in FIR? See, let's talk practically. There are different examples and different case laws which says that it will not completely throw away the case of the prosecution if there will be delay in registration of FIR. As you all know, in rape cases or in sexual harassment cases, the Supreme Court is very much clear that there is a social stigma, and because of the reputation of the family, a girl usually doesn't come ahead to report the matter. So if there is any delay in the rape matters, in any sexual harassment matters, then that delay is automatically condoned. There is a landmark judgment of Gurmeet Singh versus State of Punjab. Very well said in that judgment that in sexual harassment cases, the delay is there will be no effect of delay on the prosecution case. But let me give you a practical example. When I was doing practice in Punjab, at that time, I had contested one case. What had happened in that case? One girl and boy, they were in a relationship. Something had happened in the relationship. They have broken up the relationship. After 2 years of the breaking up the relation, the girl has filed the rape case against the boy. So now FIR has been registered against the boy, no doubt, because it is compulsory or it is mandatory for the police officials to register the FIR. They have also arrested the accused. But let me tell you one thing. On the very first day, when we have moved the regular bail application under Section 437, then we got the relief on the very first day, and the judge had given us the bail on the very first day because there was a delay of 2 years. Now you tell me, if in a rape case, one girl is giving the information immediately after the rape, then a doctor, a medical practitioner can collect a number of medical evidences after examining the girl. But after 2 years, if you will examine the girl, what will come out of it? Whether you can get any evidence out of it? No, you cannot get any evidence out of it. So from the very outset, from the very beginning, the case of the prosecution becomes weak with the delay in FIR. No doubt, the trial will be there, accused will come during the trial, but the chances of acquittal will be more. Let me give you one more example. Suppose A had committed the theft in my house and I did not report it to the police for 2 months. After 2 months, I have reported the incident to the police. After 2 months, if the police will come to my house, whether they will get anything, they will not get any evidence out of my house. But suppose on 1st of January 2020, the incident had taken place in my house and theft has been committed by the accused in my house, and I have given the information immediately to the police. Then police will come to my house. They will try to pick up the chance print. The crime team will come. They will click the pictures. They will try to pick up the fingerprints of the accused. That will be beneficial for me. And if there will be delay in FIR, then the magistrate will also look at you with suspicion that you had concocted the story. You did not come to the court with clean hands. So delay in FIR will not completely vitiate the process, but it will definitely affect the case of the prosecution. So next topic is, if the SHO refuses to register the FIR, then what one can do in that case? Section 154 talks about it. If the SHO refuses to register the FIR, then you can approach to the higher officials, like you can approach to the DCP. You can give the complaint to the DCP. If the DCP will also not listen to you and will not direct to register the FIR, or the if DCP will not direct to register the FIR, then finally you can approach the Honorable Court under Section 156 Clause 3, and a magistrate can order for registration of FIR under Section 156 Clause 3. So this is all about the FIR. Let's move on the other slide. Now, in the investigation part, we'll study two things: cognizable and the non-cognizable offenses. So FIR can be registered in the cognizable offenses. In non-cognizable offenses, FIR cannot be registered, where it is written that which offenses are cognizable and which are non-cognizable. The Schedule 1 of CRPC will clearly tell you which all offenses are cognizable and which all offenses are non-cognizable. So in cognizable offenses, police official can start the investigation without the permission of the magistrate, and police officials can arrest the accused without the permission or without getting the warrant from the magistrate. But in non-cognizable offenses, neither they can investigate nor they can arrest the accused without the permission of the magistrate. So Section 154, as we have already discussed, Section 154 talks about FIR, and FIR can only be registered in the cognizable offenses, not in non-cognizable offenses. Section 155 deals with the non-cognizable offenses. Now, if complainant has come with a complaint and the offense has been committed by the accused, that is non-cognizable offense, then after recording the statement of the complainant, the police officials will direct the complainant that he has to go before the magistrate, and then magistrate will order for the investigation of the case. If the magistrate will order the investigation of the case, then the investigation will be started. Otherwise, police officials cannot conduct the investigation in non-cognizable cases. Now, Section 156. Section 156 gives the power to the police officials to investigate the matter. Police officials can investigate the matter in the jurisdiction of the court. Whatever area comes under the jurisdiction of the court, police officials can conduct the investigation in that area. And if at some stage, if police officials will go out of the jurisdiction and conduct the investigation, still that investigation will not be illegal and it will not vitiate the trial of the prosecution. Rather, that investigation is relevant as and admissible as the other investigation which they had conducted in the jurisdiction as per section 156 clause 2. And as I have already said, section 156 clause 3 gives the power to the magistrate that the magistrate can give the order for registration of FIR. Basically, section 156 clause 3 is not only for the registration of FIR. Section 156 clause 3 has a very big ambit. The landmark judgment on section 156 clause 3 is Sakiri Basu versus State of UP, 2008 Supreme Court. Prior to this judgment, whenever anyone wants from the side of the court to order the SHO to register the FIR, they usually approach the High Court under section 482. But after this judgment, Justice Markande Karju has very well said in this judgment that the magistrate has incidental and ancillary powers, and everyone should not come to the High Court for these small matters, and magistrate has the power to order for the registration of FIR under section 156 clause 3. So from that day onwards, everybody files the application or the petition under section 156 clause 3 before the magistrate for registration of FIR. You can also move the application under section 156 clause 3 for the fair trial. If the police officials are not conducting the investigation properly, then you can move an application under section 156 clause 3, and the magistrate will direct them to do the investigation fairly and impartially. Now, the statement of the witnesses. During the investigation of the case, police official will record the statement of witnesses. And these three sections are interconnected, 160, 161, and 162. Under section 160 CRPC, police official will call the person who is acquainted with the facts and circumstances of the case so that police official can record his statement under section 161 CRPC, except the person who is below the age of 15 years or the person who is above the age of 65 years or a woman. If except except these three categories, police officials can summon any person who is acquainted with the facts and circumstances of the case in the PS to give the statement regarding the incident, regarding the case. And if that information is credible as per the wisdom of the police official, then the police official will record that statement under section 161 clause 3 CRPC. It will reduce into writing. And it is the duty of the police official that he will write that statement as per the version of the witness. Whatever he will speak, police official is duty bound to record it. Now, how section 162 is important in criminal trial as well as in investigation? Because section 162 clearly states that while recording the statement of the witness, police official neither get the signature of the witness and he will not give him any oath to the witness before recording the statement of the witness under section 161 CRPC, because otherwise it will be compulsory for the witness to speak the same statement before the court in the criminal trial, because there is no signature, because he has not taken any oath before the statement. So the witness is free to speak or to depose anything before the magistrate. This has a written by the legislature in CRPC because police officials are also accountable. There are ample of powers with the police officials, and to curtail those powers, this section is added in the CRPC. In addition to it, as per section 162, all the statements which have been recorded by the police official under section 161 CRPC, those statements can be used for what purpose? Only the statement of prosecution witnesses can be used only for the contradiction and for the re-examination, and it cannot be used for any other purpose during the criminal trial. It's a very big fact to understand those statement and anything whatever IO investigating officer will collect during the investigation. Those factors, those facts, those statements cannot be used for any purpose except the statement of prosecution witnesses for contradiction and for the re-examination by the prosecution. Those statements, there is a explanation and proviso in the section. It clearly states that those statements can also be used, as I have already told you, under section 27 Indian Evidence Act for recovery. And if the person has died who has given the statement, that can be used as a dying declaration also. There is one more important point in section 162. There is a part of omission. What is omission? When you omit something, when you forgot something to tell during your statement. For example, let me give you one example before clarifying it. There was a case in Delhi, Kapoor Singh Rana versus State NCT of Delhi. In this case, the mother of the victim has not disclosed the name of the accused during his statement. And because the name of she was very well aware about the name of the accused, but she did not disclose the name of the accused during her statement. So during the trial, the defense has taken it as a contradiction as per section 162, because if any person omits something in his statement under section 161 and that fact is substantial for the case, then that amounts to contradiction. So in that case, that fact that she did not disclose the name of the accused during her statement, that had really affected the case of the prosecution because she omitted to tell the name. So the omission is also equivalent to the contradiction if the omission part is substantive. Let's move further. Abhishek, I can't see the slides.
Let me check. Is it visible?
Let's talk further. Yeah, it's coming up. The last slide. Now let's talk about section 164. What is section 164? In 164, the magistrate, basically judicial magistrate, first class or the magistrate, has the power to record the confession as well as the statement of the victim under section 164. Let's talk about the statement part first. 164 clause 5 talks about the recording of the statement by the magistrate, and it is the discretion of the magistrate that he can record the statement of the victim as per his discretion. Let me give you the example of Nirbhaya gang rape case. In the Nirbhaya gang rape case, the Metropolitan Magistrate, namely Shri Pawan Kumar ji, has recorded the statement of that girl, Nirbhaya. At that time, Nirbhaya was not in the condition to depose anything, to speak anything. So, do you know how the magistrate has recorded the statement of the Nirbhaya under section 164 clause 5? He has recorded the statement of that girl in multiple choice question. The magistrate has put up one question and the magistrate has given 3 options to the girl to raise the hand or to give any indication on the option which is right. So how in the case of Nirbhaya, the statement under section 164 clause 5 was recorded by the Vardi MM Shri Pawan Kumar ji, and that statement was upheld till Supreme Court. Now let's come on the part of the confession. Under section 164, accused can confess before the magistrate that he has done the offense and he is guilty. So there are many parameters which the magistrate will take care. This statement, the confession or the statement can be recorded only during the investigation of the case, and the magistrate will ensure before recording the confession that accused is giving the confession voluntarily without any fear, force and coercion. If if magistrate feels that he's not giving the statement voluntarily, then the magistrate will give him time. He will send the accused to the judicial custody. He will not send the accused to the police custody. He will send the accused to the judicial custody. He will give him time to think about it, and then he will record the confession of the accused. In addition to it, before recording the confession of the accused, the magistrate will tell the accused that I am a magistrate. I am not a police official. Magistrate will disclose to the accused that what will be the consequences of the confession. It will be used against you. So after disclosing all this, the magistrate will record the confession of the accused, and he will write one memorandum on the foot of the confession statement. And he will also collect the sign of the accused, and magistrate will also sign that statement. Now, section 167. What section 167 talks about? Section 167 says that if the investigation cannot be concluded within 24 hours, then what police officials can do? As you all know, section 56 and 57 of CRPC. 57 CRPC clearly states that if the police officials has arrested one person, then they are duty bound to produce that accused within 24 hours before the magistrate. Otherwise, that confinement or that arrest will be the illegal detention, and FIR can be registered against the police officials under section 342 IPC. So within 24 hours, police officials will produce the accused before the magistrate under section 167 CRPC. Under section 167, the initial provision talks about the police remand and the judicial remand. Let me make it very clear. Police remand or judicial remand can be granted only in first 15 days of the arrest of the accused. After 15 days, the police remand cannot be granted, and accused will definitely go into the judicial remand. Now, how and when the 15 days will start? As soon as, basically, I just want to tell you the 24 hours which are there, that will be excluded. Means the first day when the police officials had arrested the accused, that will be excluded. As soon as police officials had produced the accused before the magistrate, then those 15 days will start. In short, when the accused will be produced from the day of the production, those 15 days will start. So first 15 days, police officials can get the police custody. I think so all know the meaning of police custody and the judicial custody, but still let me tell you, police custody is the custody when the police officials will keep the accused in the police station, and judicial custody means Tihar jail, when they will be out of the ambit of the police officials and they will be in the Tihar jail along with all other accused. So this is PC and JC, police custody and judicial custody. After 15 days, what is the law? Why we have written the default bail or statutory bail? There are the two different provisions are written in section 167 clause 2. The first provision states that police officials can complete the charge sheet within 90 days and file it before the magistrate. Otherwise, if they will not file the charge sheet within 90 days, then the accused will get the default bail, and the magistrate cannot refuse that bail, whatever the offense is. But in which offense the police officials having 90 days, and in which offense the police officials are having 60 days to file the charge sheet. If the offense is punishable with, please listen it properly. If the punishment is 10 years or more than 10 years, life imprisonment or death, three parameters: 10 years and more than 10 years, life imprisonment and death. If these three offenses, then police officials are having 90 days to file the charge sheet. If the punishment is less than 10 years, not 10 years, less than 10 years, then they are having 60 days to file the charge sheet. If they will not file the charge sheet in 60 days or 90 days, then the accused has the right to be released on default bail under section 167 clause 2. So this is default bail, or sometimes we can call it statutory bail also. Abhishek, can we move on the next slide? Now, let me give you the practical, let me tell you the practical documents. What all documents will be there in a charge sheet? This is very important. First of all, the complaint. Something has happened in my house, theft had been committed by the accused in my house, then I will give the complaint to the police officials. It can be in writing, I can give the oral statement also, then the police officials will convert that statement into writing. That is a complaint. Now, you must be confused with Rukka or Tahrir. What is Rukka? As soon as I will give my complaint, then one IO, investigating officer, will be assigned to me. That IO will give the details that श्रीमान जी ऐसे करके मिस्टर रजत बंसल ऐसे करके कंप्लेंट लेके आए थे, उनकी ये कंप्लेंट है, ये कंप्लेंट मुझे डीडी नंबर इसके द्वारा दी गई, डीडी मतलब डेली डायरी नंबर, डीडी नंबर के द्वारा मुझे ये दी गई, इसमें ये सारी चीजें हुई है, और क्योंकि इसमें ये कॉग्निजेबल ऑफेंस कमिट हुआ है, तो मैं डीओ साहब को, डीओ मतलब ड्यूटी ऑफिसर, देयर इज ए ड्यूटी ऑफिसर इन ए पुलिस स्टेशन, मैं डीओ साहब को रिक्वेस्ट करता हूं कि इसमें एफआईआर करी जाए, और उसके नीचे वो लिखेगा डेट एंड टाइम ऑफ द इंसिडेंट, प्लेस ऑफ इंसिडेंट, डेट एंड टाइम ऑफ रुक्का. Then he is preparing the ruka. Then he will hand over the same to the duty officer, to whom we call DO, and then DO will write down the application. Then DO will register the FIR on it. So then the IU will get the copy of the FIR. That copy of the FIR will be given free to the complainant as per section 154. After this, now the investigation will start. This is the normal procedure which I am telling you. Then the investigation will start. So the police officer or the investigating officer will come along with me, and he will come to my house to prepare the site plan. वो एक मैप बनाएगा कि मेरे घर में कहाँ चोरी हुई है, वो मेरी स्ट्रीट बनाएगा, मेरी बिल्डिंग बनाएगा, उसके साइड पे मेरा घर दिखाएगा जहां मैं रह रहा हूँ. Then he will show the room where the offense has been committed by the accused. So this is what we call site plan. नक्शा बनाएगा, और वो नक्शा किसके कहने पे बनाएगा? He will prepare the site plan at the instance of the complainant, at my instance. So first document in the charge sheet is complaint. कंप्लेंट के साथ होगा रुक्का, उसके बाद कॉपी ऑफ एफआईआर, उसके बाद साइट प्लान, जो पुलिस वाला साइट प्लान बनाएगा. उसके बाद कुछ डॉक्यूमेंट जैसे सीजर मीमो. सपोज करो जो चोर था वो चोरी करने के बाद अपना कोई इंस्ट्रूमेंट, कोई अपना कोई वेपन, कोई चीज मेरे घर पे भूल गया या छोड़ गया गलती से. सपोज करो स्क्रू ड्राइवर जिससे उसने लॉक तोड़ा. देन द पुलिस ऑफिशियल विल सीज दैट स्क्रू ड्राइवर, एंड पुलिस ऑफिशियल्स विल प्रिपेयर द सीजर मेमो ऑफ इट. और सीजर मेमो किस चीज के बनते हैं? सपोज करो लेटर ऑन एक्यूज पकड़ा जाता है और केस प्रॉपर्टी रिकवर हो जाती है. सपोज करो मेरा मोबाइल चोरी होता है, later on that mobile has been recovered from the possession of the accused, then the police official will seize that mobile phone and they will prepare the seizure memo of the mobile phone. After that, arrest memo. When the accused has been arrested by the police, they will prepare the arrest memo as per section 46 CRPC. Thereafter arrest, they will conduct the personal search of the accused. वो पर्सनल सर्च करेंगे. अगर उसकी कस्टडी में कोई भी चीज मिलती है, सपोज करो उसका अपना मोबाइल, उसकी अपनी वॉच, उसका वॉलेट, वो सारी चीजें मिलती हैं, then they will seize all those articles, they will keep them safe. Thereafter, documents under section 91 CRPC. For an example, in a case of forgery, 420, cheating, we have to collect the documents from the bank. Then the police official will give the notice under section 91 CRPC to the bank officials and he will collect the documents. तो वो सारी चीजें भी आ सकती हैं फाइल में. Thereafter, forensic लैब की रिपोर्ट या एक्साइज रिपोर्ट या ब्लास्टिक रिपोर्ट. फोरेंसिक रिपोर्ट जैसे सपोज करो हैंड राइटिंग रिपोर्ट हो गई. एक्साइज रिपोर्ट अगर इलिसिट लीकर पकड़ी गई है आपसे, तो हमें क्या पता उसमें लीकर ही है, हम तो उसकी बॉटल से या उसके कलर से वी आर जस्ट प्रिज्यूमिंग कि ये लीकर है. टिल द टाइम हमारे पास लैब की रिपोर्ट नहीं आती तब तक हम ये नहीं कह सकते कि वो लीकर है. सो वी विल सेंड दोज बॉटल्स टू द एक्साइज लैब एंड दे विल गिव अस द रिपोर्ट कि यस इट इज लीकर. उसके बाद ब्लास्टिक रिपोर्ट, मतलब अगर आपसे कोई गन मिलती है तो वो गन हम वहां भेजेंगे एक्सपर्ट्स के पास और एक्सपर्ट्स विल चेक कि ये गन चल रही है नहीं चल रही. ठीक है. or all these reports will come in the charge sheet. Thereafter, pointing out memo. What is pointing out memo? When the accused is ready to tell that where he has committed the incident, then at the instance of the accused, we will go to that place and he will point out the place कि yes, मैंने इस घर में चोरी की थी. Then police officials will prepare the pointing out memo. TIP, test identification parade. What is test identification parade? For the identification of the accused. TIP proceeding is for the identification of the accused. हम accused जैसे 10 आदमी accused के साथ खड़े कर देंगे और उसको कहेंगे complainant को या victim को कहेंगे कि identify करो who is the accused in the presence of the magistrate. Then he will identify the accused. It will help in the investigation also and at the time of trial also. Statement under section 164 of the victim, as we have already discussed. Disclosure statement of the accused. If accused wants to disclose something, that where he has concealed the property, where he has thrown the weapon of the offense, then he can give the disclosure statement also. Then statement under section 161 CRPC. Then all the statements of the witnesses under section 161 CRPC will come in the charge sheet. So this is what we call charge sheet. Charge sheet में इनमें से कुछ डॉक्यूमेंट हो भी सकते हैं, कुछ डॉक्यूमेंट नहीं भी हो सकते. As per the case, जिस चीज का केस है उसके अकॉर्डिंगली डॉक्यूमेंट्स होंगे. दो फाइल्स बनती हैं, एक जुडिशियल फाइल, एक पुलिस फाइल. जुडिशियल फाइल में ये सारी चीजें होती हैं. पुलिस फाइल में एक एडिशनल चीज होती है जिसको हम केस डायरी कहते हैं. जो पुलिस वाले केस डायरी लिखते हैं अंडर सेक्शन 172, तो वो केस डायरी भी होती है पुलिस फाइल में. नाउ लेट्स टॉक अबाउट सेक्शन 160 और 170. ये दो सेक्शन है. 167 talks about when the evidence is not sufficient with the police official, then what police official will do? They will file the closure report under section 173 clause 2. They will file the closure report because they are not having the sufficient evidence against the accused. वो कह रहे हैं जी हमारे पास एविडेंस नहीं है, जज साहब इसको रिलीज कर दो, हमारे पास एविडेंस नहीं है. So the charge sheet will come in section 173 clause 2 along with read with section 169. Under section 170, if we are having the sufficient evidence against the accused, then we will file the charge sheet against the accused under section 173 clause 2 read with section 170. Now from here, because the evidence is sufficient enough against the accused to start the case against the accused, so from here the inquiry stage will come. After preparing the charge sheet, the police official will submit the charge sheet before the magistrate. Now, what magistrate will do? First of all, magistrate will take the cognizance. Now the part of the court has started. First of all, what the magistrate will do? Cognizance. What do you mean by cognizance? Cognizance means applying his judicial mind on the charge sheet. The magistrate will apply his judicial mind on the charge sheet under section 190. There are three parts. 191A talks about complaint. 191 clause B talks about police report. पुलिस रिपोर्ट मींस चार्ज शीट जिसकी हम बात कर रहे हैं. 191 क्लॉज सी दैट इज सुओ मोटो. उनको कहीं से भी इंफॉर्मेशन मिल जाती है, कोई लेटर मिल जाती है, ऑल दोस थिंग्स विल कम अंडर 191 क्लॉज सी. सो द कॉग्निजेंस इज द फर्स्ट पार्ट. द मैजिस्ट्रेट विल सी yes the prima facie case is against the accused, so he will take the cognizance. मतलब he will apply his judicial mind on the charge sheet, and after applying his judicial mind he will start the issue of process, जिसको हम कहते हैं to summon the accused under section 204 CRPC. So issue of process शुरू हो गया, मतलब हमने summon भेज दिया accused को. Now on the next date of hearing the accused will appear. When the accused will appear before the court, then under section 207 208 we will provide the copy of the charge sheet along with all the documents which are there in the charge sheet to the accused. This is the first part of the fair trial. We are providing all the copies to the accused. Whatever is there in the judicial file, charge sheet, all other documents, seizure memo, arrest memo, whatever is there in the file, statement under section 161 CRPC, we will provide all the copies to the accused under section 207 208. After providing the copies, then on the next date of hearing, the matter will come on the framing of charge. Then the prosecutor will argue for the framing of charge, and on the other hand side, the defense counsel will argue for the discharge of accused. So here magistrate will see which all offenses he has committed as per the charge sheet. Suppose police officials has brought the charge sheet in 3 offenses. but the prosecutor has argued that 5 offenses has been committed by the accused, then charge can be framed under 5. Charge can be framed against the accused under 5 sections. Suppose police officials has brought the charge sheet under 5 sections, then magistrate can see कि एविडेंस तो सिर्फ इस पे 3 सेक्शंस का ही है, तो उसको 2 सेक्शन में डिस्चार्ज कर देगा, 3 सेक्शन में उसके ऊपर चार्ज फ्रेम कर देंगे. मैजिस्ट्रेट हैज द पावर कि उसको कंप्लीटली भी डिस्चार्ज कर सकता है. Abhishek, next slide. Before going into this, I think we should discuss the next slide. This one. Let me briefly tell you what all steps are there in trial. Then I will differentiate the trials. What kind of trials are there? Because it will be easy for you to understand what is the difference between the different trials. So, in the trial, these parts, as we have already discussed, cognizance 190 that has already been taken by the accused, taken by the magistrate. Accused has been summoned by the magistrate under section 204. Copies have already been supplied under section 207, 208. Argument on charge. Now the charge has been framed against the accused. From this moment, when the charge has been framed, then the trial process will start. Now, what is trial? In trial, basically, let me give you these all points for your practical understanding. What will start? Now the prosecution evidence will start. हर चार्जशीट में एक लिस्ट ऑफ विटनेसेस होती है. प्रोसिक्यूशन उन सब लिस्ट, जो प्रोसिक्यूशन की वो लिस्ट ऑफ विटनेस है, 1 by 1 हम सबको सम्मन करेंगे, कॉल करेंगे और एग्जामिन करेंगे. दोज आर प्रोसिक्यूशन एविडेंस. Suppose complainant will come. The prosecutor will examine the complainant. After examination, the defense counsel will get the opportunity to cross-examine that witness. And after cross-examination, if the prosecutor wants to re-examine that witness on few points or some few points which have a reason new in the cross-examination, then the prosecutor can re-examine that witness. Then only on those factors, only on those facts, the defense counsel will again get the opportunity to cross-examine the witness. So, turn by turn, we will call all the prosecution witnesses, like complainant, any expert who has given the handwriting report, any constable who had joined the investigation, IO of the case, like he's the sub-inspector, then that sub-inspector will come. The duty officer who has registered the FIR, he will come along with the FIR register. These all will be the prosecution witnesses. Prosecutor will examine them. Defense counsel will cross-examine them. After this, the statement of the accused will be recorded under section 313 CRPC. See, this statement has not a very big value, but this will work as the cementing in the criminal trial. Judge will ask him question that all these witnesses has given evidence against you, and what is your viewpoint about it? What do you want to say about it? Why they have given the statement against you? Why they have deposed against you? So at this stage, the defense can create his case, or defense can speak कि सर मुझे तो झूठा बचाया जा रहा है जी, मैंने तो कुछ नहीं किया, ठीक है जी, मैं तो वहां से निकल रहा था जी, ये है जी, वो है जी. Whatever you want to say, being an accused in that case, you can speak under section 313 CRPC. After this stage, now the defense evidence will come. The last question of statement under section 313 will be whether do you want to lead defense evidence or not. If you will say yes, then the defense evidence will start. If you will say no, I do not want to lead any evidence in defense, then you will not get the opportunity to lead any defense evidence. Suppose you have said yes, I want to bring the witnesses in my favor in defense. So now, if accused wants to examine himself in that case, then there is a special provision for this. 315 CRPC. According to section 315 CRPC, accused will move a written application before the magistrate that yes, I want myself to be a witness in the case. तो वो एप्लीकेशन मैजिस्ट्रेट उनकी परमिट करेंगे कि अलाउ करेंगे कि ठीक है, यू कैन कम इन द विटनेस बॉक्स एंड यू कैन डिपोज व्हाटएवर यू वांट टू डिपोज. तो एक्यूज स्टेटमेंट देगा, देन पब्लिक प्रोसिक्यूटर विल गेट द चांस टू क्रॉस एग्जामिन द एक्यूज्ड, एंड इन एडिशन टू इट ही कैन ब्रिंग ऑल अदर विटनेसेस आल्सो. सपोज करो ए ने ये मेरे पे एलिगेशन लगाया कि रजत और मैं, सपोज करो अभिषेक की एग्जांपल लेते हैं हम, अभिषेक और मैं हम दोनों इकट्ठे बैठ के एक लाइब्रेरी में सपोज करो पढ़ रहे थे. तो जब हम लाइब्रेरी से बाहर आए तो अभिषेक कहता है जी रजत और मैं इकट्ठे पढ़ रहे थे, मेरा मोबाइल रजत ने ही चोरी करा है और तो कोई बंदा हमारे पास बैठा ही नहीं था. ठीक है, ये अभिषेक का कहना है कि रजत ने चोरी किया है, रजत मेरे साथ बैठा था और रजत 7 बजे उठ के चला गया था और उसके बाद मेरा मोबाइल नहीं मिला. ठीक है, अब ये अभिषेक का कहना है. अब नाउ मैं अपने डिफेंस एविडेंस में क्या लेके आता हूं कि नहीं जी अभिषेक तो झूठ बोल रहा है, मैं 7 बजे नहीं गया था लाइब्रेरी से, मैं तो 6 बजे ही उठ के चला गया था लाइब्रेरी से और मुझे लाइब्रेरियन ने बताया कि 6:30 बजे अभिषेक से मिलने नवनीत आया था और अभिषेक ने ये फैक्ट्स छुपाए हैं और मैं 6 बजे से 7 बजे मैं ऐसे करके एक लेक्चर दे रहा था, एक वेबिनार अटेंड कर रहा था और आई कैन प्रोड्यूस द रिकॉर्डिंग ऑफ दैट वेबिनार कि मैंने 6 से 7 बजे तो मैंने तो वेबिनार दिया है जी. So all these evidences I can bring in my statement. डिफेंस एविडेंस में ये सारी चीजें मैं लेके आ सकता हूं जो कंप्लेनेंट ने शायद कंसील कर ली हैं या वो चीजें जो मुझे बचाएंगी इस केस से. सो डिफेंस एविडेंस विल कम, देन प्रोसिक्यूटर विल क्रॉस एग्जामिन ऑल दोज विटनेसेस. आफ्टर क्रॉस एग्जामिनेशन ऑफ दिस विटनेसेस, then the stage of argument will come. Public prosecutor will argue on the side of the complainant and the defense counsel will argue from the side of the accused. Then the day of judgment will come. Now there are two parts. Either judge will acquit the accused or judge will convict the accused. If the judge will acquit the accused, then it's fine. He will give the bond under section 437A CRPC and he will go. But if judge convicts the accused, then there is quantum of sentence. As per law, the magistrate cannot pass the quantum of sentence on the same day. If the conviction has been pronounced by the judge on 1st of January, then he will give at least a day of time, like on 2nd, on 3rd or 5th or 7th. He will give few days. After few days, he will pronounce the quantum of sentence. I think you all know what is quantum of sentence. Conviction का मतलब तो ये हुआ सिर्फ ये कहना कि हम कोर्ट ये मानती है कि आपने ये क्राइम किया है. Prosecution has proved the case beyond reasonable doubt. Quantum of sentence का मतलब ये है कि अगर आपने मर्डर किया था 302 में तो 5 दिन बाद जज ये डिसाइड करेगा कि आपको फांसी की सजा देनी है या लाइफ इम्प्रिजनमेंट देनी है. सो दैट इज व्हाट इज क्वांटम ऑफ सेंटेंस. और क्वांटम ऑफ सेंटेंस में भी दोनों को आर्ग्यू करने की अपॉर्चुनिटी मिलती है, डिफेंस काउंसिल को भी और प्रोसिक्यूटर को भी, ताकि प्रोसिक्यूटर ये कहे कि इसको जी मैक्सिमम सजा दी जाए और जो डिफेंस काउंसिल वो कहेगा जी ही इज द ओनली ब्रेड अर्नर इन द फैमिली, इसके घर में कोई और नहीं है जी, बूढ़ी माँ है, इसकी किराए पे रहता है, 2 बहनें हैं जिनकी शादी करनी है. ठीक है, अगर इसको आपने जी 2 साल के लिए जेल में भेज दिया तो इसका परिवार बर्बाद हो जाएगा. ये है जी इसने पहली बार ऑफेंस किया है जी, आज के पहले इसने कोई ऑफेंस नहीं किया, गलती होगी. तो ये सारी चीजें उसकी सेंटेंस को मिटिगेट कर देंगी और ये सारी चीजें कंसीडर करके अगर जज ने उसको 2 साल की सजा करनी थी तो शायद उसको 6 महीने की ही सजा करे. सो दिस इज व्हाट ऑल अबाउट द क्रिमिनल ट्रायल. जो मैंने आपको प्रैक्टिकल चीजें ये बता दी हैं इस चीज की. Now we should please come back on that slide जिसमें वो हमने session tribal वो वाली slide, 2 slides, yeah, this one. Now let me tell you about the trial. There are 2 types of offenses. I think we are running out of time or it's fine.
Please carry on.
Okay. There are 2 types of offenses, 2 types of cases: warrant cases और समन केसेस। वारंट केसेस क्या होते हैं? वारंट केसेस वो होते हैं जिसमें पनिशमेंट 2 साल से ज्यादा हो, लाइफ इम्प्रिजनमेंट, डेथ, या कोई भी 2 साल से ज्यादा की पनिशमेंट होती है जिसमें, वो वारंट केसेस होते हैं। वो ऑफेंसेस जिसमें सजा 2 साल या 2 साल से कम हो, वो सम्मन ट्रायबल केसेस होते हैं। सो दिस इज द डिफरेंस बिटवीन द सम्मन ट्रायल केसेस एंड वारंट ट्रायल केसेस। सो सेक्शन 225 से लेके 265 तक ट्रायल के सेक्शंस हैं सीआरपीसी में। सो लेट्स टॉक अबाउट द वारंट केसेस फर्स्ट। वारंट केसेस ऑन पुलिस रिपोर्ट। आगे भी डिफरेंस है कि एक पुलिस रिपोर्ट पे केस आएगा, एक सेक्शन 190 क्लॉज 1C में जहां जज ने सुओ मोटो कॉग्निजेंस लिया है किसी मैटर का, वो आएंगे। सो इन 190 in warrant cases on police report that starts with 238. These of the trial starts from 238, section 238 CRPC. So इसमें क्या होता है? इसमें सिंपल जो प्रोसेस मैंने अभी आपको दिखाया था वही प्रोसेस चलेगा। इसमें क्या होगा? पहले हम कंप्लायंस करेंगे, कॉग्निजेंस लेने के बाद कंप्लायंस करेंगे 207 208 की। उसके बाद हम चार्ज पे आर्ग्यू करेंगे। चार्ज पे आर्ग्यू करने के बाद एक चार्ज में क्वेश्चन होता है लास्ट में, डू यू वांट टू प्लीड गिल्टी? चार्ज फ्रेम करने के बाद नीचे क्वेश्चन होता है, डू यू वांट टू प्लीड गिल्टी? उसमें अगर एक्यूज कहता है यस आई वांट टू प्लीड गिल्टी, तो वो वही मान लिया उसने कि मेरे से गलती होगी जी, मुझे सजा दे दो, तो वो हो जाएगा ट्रायल में। अदरवाइज अगर वो कहता है नो आई डू नॉट वांट टू प्लीड गिल्टी एंड I want to pursue with the trial, तो ट्रायल स्टार्ट होता है। सो इस केस में जो अभी हमने प्रोसीजर देखा, जो मैंने प्रैक्टिकली आपको बताया, वो वारंट केसेस ऑन पुलिस रिपोर्ट का प्रोसीजर था, ठीक है, जिसमें हमने चार्जेस फ्रेम किए। उस पर चार्ज फ्रेम करने के बाद प्रोसिक्यूशन एविडेंस आया, प्रोसिक्यूशन एविडेंस के क्रॉस एग्जामिनेशन हुए, 313 की स्टेटमेंट हुई, फिर डिफेंस एविडेंस आएगा, उसका क्रॉस एग्जामिनेशन, उसके बाद फाइनल आर्ग्यूमेंट एंड देन जजमेंट। Now, what is the difference between the warrant cases on police report or otherwise? On otherwise में क्या होता है? Otherwise में ये होता है कि from the very first day, instead of doing anything, we will start with the prosecution evidence. क्या करेंगे हम? prosecution evidence से शुरू करेंगे। उसमें जैसे ही जज के पास केस, जज ने कॉग्निजेंस लिया, prosecution evidence स्टार्ट करेंगे। सेक्शन 244 हमने प्रोसिक्यूशन एविडेंस शुरू कर लिया। प्रोसिक्यूशन एविडेंस शुरू करने के बाद प्रोसिक्यूशन एविडेंस खत्म हो गया, जितने एविडेंस कराने थे, जितने प्रोसिक्यूशन को लगे ठीक है, उसके बाद जज अपॉर्चुनिटी देगा प्रोसिक्यूटर को और डिफेंस काउंसिल को, दोनों को आर्ग्यू करने की। आर्ग्यू करने के बाद अगर जज को लगता है दैट मटेरियल इज नॉट सफिशिएंट इनफ एंड ही कैन डिस्चार्ज द एक्यूज्ड, then he will discharge the accused. But if the magistrate is satisfied enough कि नहीं, डिस्चार्ज नहीं बनता, then उसको डिस्चार्ज नहीं करेंगे, then we will frame the charge। अगर वो प्लीड गिल्टी करता है ठीक है, अगर नहीं करता तो जो प्रोसिक्यूशन एविडेंस हमने करवाई थी, तो डिफेंस को अपॉर्चुनिटी दी जाएगी कि इनमें से आपने कौन से विटनेस बुलाने हैं क्रॉस करने के लिए। तो डिफेंस बताएगा जी हमने 1 2 4 7 ये 4 विटनेस क्रॉस के लिए बुलाने हैं, तो उन चारों को क्रॉस एग्जामिनेशन के बुलाएंगे, उनका क्रॉस होगा। उसके बाद प्रोसिक्यूशन को दोबारा अपॉर्चुनिटी मिलेगी कि अगर कोई और एविडेंस लीड करनी है तो कर लो। उसके बाद डिफेंस को लीड करने की अपॉर्चुनिटी मिलेगी, फिर प्रोसिक्यूशन उनका क्रॉस करेगा एंड फाइनली ऑन द आर्ग्यूमेंट्स। सो दिस इज बेसिकली दो चीजें होगी अब इसमें। वारंट ट्राइबल केसेस थे, एक पुलिस रिपोर्ट पे, एक अदरवाइज, दोनों कवर हो गए इसमें। 238 से शुरू होके ये 248 तक एक्विटल कन्विक्शन जो भी होगा उसमें। नाउ लेट्स टॉक अबाउट सेशन ट्राइबल केसेस। सेशन ट्राइबल केसेस में इंटरेस्टिंगली एक चीज सीखने वाली है कि सेशन कोर्ट कैन नॉट टेक द कॉग्निजेंस ऑफ द ऑफेंस। जो भी चार्जशीट, अगर मर्डर की है, रेप की है, वो फाइल मैजिस्ट्रेट के पास ही होगी, बिकॉज मैजिस्ट्रेट ओनली हैज द पावर टू टेक द कॉग्निजेंस। मैजिस्ट्रेट उस पर कॉग्निजेंस लेगा, एक्यूज्ड को बुलाएगा, एक्यूज्ड को कॉपी सप्लाई करेगा, उसके बाद मैजिस्ट्रेट उस मैटर को कमिट कर देगा टू सेशन, क्योंकि मैजिस्ट्रेट जो है हमारा जुडिशियल मैजिस्ट्रेट फर्स्ट क्लास, वो मर्डर तो ट्राई नहीं कर सकता, वो रेप तो ट्राई नहीं कर सकता। सो अंडर सेक्शन 209 सीआरपीसी वो इसको कमिट कर देगा टू द सेशंस कोर्ट। सेशंस कोर्ट को जब उसने कमिट कर दिया केस, उसके बाद वहां पे ट्रायल चलेगा उसका। नाउ द वारंट केसेस बाय पुलिस रिपोर्ट और द सेशन ट्राइबल मैटर्स में सिर्फ और सिर्फ एक चीज का डिफरेंस है। किस चीज का डिफरेंस है? वैसी चार्ज फ्रेम होगा, प्रोसिक्यूशन एविडेंस आएगा, प्रोसिक्यूशन अपना एविडेंस कराएगा, ठीक है। उसके बाद जब प्रोसिक्यूशन ने एविडेंस कराया, प्रोसिक्यूशन के एविडेंस कराने के बाद अगर जज को लगता है कि ये मैटर में एक्विटल बनती है और प्रोसिक्यूशन अपना केस प्रूव नहीं कर पा रहा, तो जज क्या करेगा? देन ही कैन एक्विट द एक्यूज्ड। वहीं पे प्रोसिक्यूशन एविडेंस के बाद ही एक्विट कर देगा अगर सेशन जज को लगेगा। एज पर सेक्शन 232, अगर आप सेक्शन 232 पढ़ोगे तो ये चीज आपको वहां से क्लियर होगी। सेक्शन 232 में उसको वहीं पे एक्विट कर देगा। पर अगर इफ द सेशन जज फील्स दैट there is a prima facie case against the accused and now accused should give the opportunity to cross examine the witnesses, then the defense counsel will come, he will cross examine all the witnesses, then वही simple procedure जो मैंने पहले बताया था वही चलेगा। सिर्फ इतना सा डिफरेंस है सेशन ट्राइबल और मैजिस्ट्रेट ट्राइबल में कि जो एक्विटल पार सेशन जज साहब के पास है अंडर सेक्शन 232 वो मैजिस्ट्रेट के पास नहीं है। नाउ समन ट्राइबल केसेस जिनमें पनिशमेंट 2 साल या 2 साल से कम है, उसमें क्या होता है? उसमें बेसिकली कहने को तो उसमें ये है कि उसमें चार्ज फ्रेम नहीं होता, नोटिस फ्रेम होता है, ठीक है। लेट मी टेल यू प्रैक्टिकली कि क्या होता है। सारा प्रोसीजर वैसी सेम चलता है। नाउ समन्स ट्राइबल केसेस कौन से हैं? 279-304A, 279-338, 279-337, 285, ऐसे जो केसेस हैं ये समन ट्राइबल केसेस हैं। इसमें हम क्या करते हैं? सेम वही प्रोसीजर, फाइल आएगी, कॉग्निजेंस लेंगे, उसके बाद उसको कहने को नोटिस फ्रेम कराएंगे। उसमें जहां हम ऊपर चार्ज लिखेंगे वहां नोटिस लिखेंगे, वैसी फ्रेम करा के उसको बता के कि आपके अगेंस्ट ये एक्विजिशन है। रेस्ट ऑफ द प्रोसीजर विल बी द सेम। प्रोसिक्यूशन एविडेंस, क्रॉस एग्जामिनेशन 313, डिफेंस एविडेंस, क्रॉस एग्जामिनेशन, जजमेंट, आर्ग्यूमेंट, जजमेंट, ऑर्डर, दैट्स इट। The procedure rest is the same. This is summon tribal cases. Can I take 5 more minutes?
Please.
Yes.
The last topic is the complaint case from section 202 to 203. सिर्फ यही ट्रायल रह गया हमारा, बाकी सारा I have already explained you. 200 से 203 तक।
Please.
सेक्शन 200 में क्या होता है कि सपोज करो कोई ऐसा ऑफेंस हुआ जिसमें एफआईआर रजिस्टर नहीं हुई, या 156 क्लॉज 3 में भी जज साहब ने एफआईआर के ऑर्डर नहीं किए, या कंप्लेनेंट ये कहता है कि मेरे पास पूरा एविडेंस है तो मैं पुलिस के पास क्यों जाऊं, मैं सीधा मैजिस्ट्रेट के पास जाऊंगा और आई विल फाइल द कंप्लेंट। तो मैं प्रैक्टिकली बताऊंगा आपको सीधा। तो उसमें क्या होगा? अंडर सेक्शन 200 यू विल फाइल द कंप्लेंट बिफोर द मैजिस्ट्रेट, मेट्रोपॉलिटन मैजिस्ट्रेट और जुडिशियल मैजिस्ट्रेट फर्स्ट क्लास। आप कंप्लेंट फाइल करोगे। कंप्लेंट फाइल करने के बाद द मैजिस्ट्रेट विल टेक द कॉग्निजेंस ऑन इट। आफ्टर टेकिंग द कॉग्निजेंस, मैजिस्ट्रेट कंप्लेनेंट को कहेगा कि आपके पास जो भी विटनेस है उनको आप ले आओ। देन मैजिस्ट्रेट विल एग्जामिन कंप्लेनेंट एज वेल एज all the witness which are there with the complainant to prove the case of the complainant. इसको हम कहते हैं प्री समनिंग एविडेंस। प्री समनिंग एविडेंस में ये सारे बंदे आएंगे। इसमें देखने वाली बात ये है कि the magistrate will himself examine all those witnesses and the complainant in this case. After examining all those witnesses, then now the counsel of the complainant will argue कि अभी इशू ऑफ प्रोसेस किया जाए, सम्मन किया जाए एक्यूज्ड को। तो एट दिस स्टेज जब जज ने वो विटनेस एग्जामिन करा लिए, उसके बाद now the magistrate will go through the complaint, magistrate will read the examination in chief of complainant and all the witnesses. After going through all this, if the magistrate feels that yes, some prima facie offense has been committed by the accused, then he will summon the accused under section 204. But if he feels that कि नहीं offense नहीं बनता, then he will dismiss the complaint under section 203 CRPC. तो वो सम्मन नहीं करेगा, वहीं पे कंप्लेंट डिसमिस कर देगा. इन एडिशन टू इट, अगर यहाँ पे कंप्लेनेंट को एग्जामिन कर लिया, विटनेस को एग्जामिन कर लिया, नाउ द मैजिस्ट्रेट फील्स दैट कि रेदर देन समनिंग द एक्यूज्ड, वो कुछ इन्वेस्टिगेशन करवाना चाहता है इस चीज पे, कोई और एविडेंस इकट्ठा करना चाहता है, या वो खुद कोई इंक्वायरी करना चाहता है रिगार्डिंग दैट ऑफेंस, देन एज पर सेक्शन 202 सीआरपीसी वो इंक्वायरी भी कंडक्ट करा सकता है, खुद भी कर सकता है, अपने सबॉर्डिनेट से भी करवा सकता है, और पुलिस वालों को भी ऑर्डर दे सकता है कि इसमें इन्वेस्टिगेशन कंडक्ट करो, इन्वेस्टिगेशन कंडक्ट करके मुझे रिपोर्ट फाइल करो. अब उसके पास कितने डॉक्यूमेंट है एग्जामिन करने के लिए? कंप्लेंट, कंप्लेनेंट की स्टेटमेंट, विटनेस की स्टेटमेंट जो उसने इंक्वायरी करी वो, या फिर जो पुलिस वालों ने इन्वेस्टिगेशन करी ये सारी चीजें. नाउ ही विल एग्जामिन ऑल दीज डॉक्यूमेंट्स. नाउ ही विल सी वेदर accused can be summoned or not. अगर उसको लगता है accused को summon करना है, then he will summon the accused under 204. अगर उसको लगता है कि accused को summon नहीं करना, then he can dismiss the complaint under section 203. अगर उसको accused को summon कर लिया, then the procedure is the same. कि जो भी evidences हुए हैं, वो बंदे आएंगे, उनको हम क्रॉस करेंगे, एग्जामिनेशन इन चीफ उनका क्रॉस, देन 313 की स्टेटमेंट, सॉरी सबसे पहले चार्ज भूल गया मैं. जैसे ही एक्यूज्ड आएगा, एक्यूज्ड को हम डॉक्यूमेंट सप्लाई करेंगे, डॉक्यूमेंट सप्लाई करने के बाद उसके दोनों के आर्गुमेंट सुनने के बाद देन चार्ज विल बी फ्रेम्ड अगेंस्ट द एक्यूज्ड. चार्ज फ्रेम करने के बाद देन द प्रोसेस विल बी द सेम, वही सारी चीजें होंगी. द पॉइंट इज दिस, इन द कंप्लेंट केस देयर विल बी नो पब्लिक प्रोसिक्यूटर. यहाँ पे दोनों तरफ से अपने इंडिविजुअल काउंसिल होंगे, अपने प्राइवेट काउंसिल्स होंगे, कंप्लेनेंट का भी और एक्यूज्ड का भी. दिस इज द प्रोसीजर ऑफ द कंप्लेंट केस. So I think I have almost covered all the things regarding the investigation. मोटी चीजें, मतलब all the basic things I have covered regarding the investigation, inquiry and trial. And now it's over to you, Abhishek, if you want to, if there are few questions from the participants, if they want to ask anything from me, then I'm here to answer all the questions.
I would request Mr. Saxena. Mr. Saxena, queries for better understanding of the participant.
For better understanding of the topic of this symposium, following questions may be warranted. Like I'm putting before Mr. Bansal the first question: when is the first official role of a defense counsel comes into play in a criminal trial? Should I repeat, Mr. Bansal?
No, it's fine.
Okay.
The role of the defense counsel will come on the very first day when the accused will appear before the court. Under section 204, magistrate has issued the process or summoned the accused. When the first day accused will come before the court, on that day the role of the defense counsel will come, because on that day magistrate will provide the copies of the charge sheet to the accused under section 207, 208. So being a layman, that accused does not know कि सारी copies पूरी हैं या नहीं है. So the advocate will come, he will check that all the copies are there, all the photocopies of the file are there in the copy which has been supplied to the accused. In addition to it, suppose करो accused पुलिस बेल पे था या anticipatory bail पे चल रहा था accused. So on the very first day when the accused will appear before the court, तो उसको उस दिन अपने बेल बॉन्ड दोबारा भरने पड़ेंगे और मैजिस्ट्रेट से बेल लेनी पड़ेगी. उसके लिए डिफेंस काउंसिल का रोल उस दिन, जिस दिन पहले दिन एक्यूज अपीयर होगा कोर्ट में, उस दिन से शुरू हो जाता है, ड्यूरिंग द इंक्वायरी और ट्रायल बिफोर द कोर्ट. अदरवाइज डिफेंस काउंसिल का रोल उस दिन भी हम कह सकते हैं शुरू हो जाता है जिस दिन उसको अरेस्ट करके पुलिस वाले लेके आते हैं. पहले दिन, ऑन द वेरी फर्स्ट डे उसको अरेस्ट कर लिया, पुलिस वाले उसको मैजिस्ट्रेट के सामने प्रोड्यूस करेंगे, उस दिन उनका काउंसिल आएगा so that he can move the bail application, so that he can get the copy of the FIR, वो सारी चीजों के लिए वो इन्वेस्टिगेशन के पार्ट में आ गया रोल डिफेंस काउंसिल का, और यहाँ पे इंक्वायरी और ट्रायल के टाइम ये रोल है डिफेंस काउंसिल का।
The second question is, police registers FIR in a cognizable case, but they file charge sheet of a non-cognizable case. What will be the consequences and types of trial? Should I repeat this?
No, it's fine. In this question, you have to read the explanation of section 2D. Section 2D की explanation very explicitly talks about it. It says कि police officials have registered the FIR and they can only register the FIR in the cognizable case. Later on, in charge sheet they have written the offense which is made out from the investigation is non-cognizable. Now, why they have done so? Because in cognizable offenses, there is no need to get the permission of the magistrate to start the investigation. They will start the investigation without the permission of the magistrate. अगर नॉन कॉग्निजेबल केस होता ना तो वो एफआईआर रजिस्टर कर पाते और ना ही विदाउट द परमिशन ऑफ द मैजिस्ट्रेट उसकी इन्वेस्टिगेशन शुरू कर पाते। तो उन्होंने क्या किया, ये दोनों प्रोसेस ही खत्म कर दिए मैजिस्ट्रेट वाले। तो इस केस में क्या होगा, इस केस में द प्रोसीजर इज दिस, जो पुलिस रिपोर्ट वो फाइल करेगा पुलिस वाला, उसको मैजिस्ट्रेट कंसीडर करेगा एज ए कंप्लेंट, और जो कंप्लेंट केस का प्रोसीजर है एज पर सेक्शन 200 वो कंप्लेंट केस के प्रोसीजर से चलेगा वो केस, ना कि पुलिस रिपोर्ट के प्रोसीजर से चलेगा वो केस। सो दीज आर द कंसीक्वेंसेस, कंप्लेंट केस की तरह वो केस मूव होगा।
Okay. The third one is, I'm putting before you, Mr. Bansal, the third question. Cognizable case is registered and police filed charge sheet of a cognizable case, but the judge / magistrate decides it to be non-cognizable case. Then what will be the consequence? Should I repeat it?
See, there are two stages. At the first stage, that is a cognizance of the offense. At the time of the cognizance of the offense, if the magistrate has taken the cognizance of all the offenses which are there in the charge sheet, then the stage has gone. Then it will move like the warrant case on the police report. Then at the stage of the charge, he can drop any of the sections and he can add the charge of non-cognizable offenses at the time of charge. Otherwise, अगर उसको ये लगता है कि कुछ भी नहीं बनता, then he can decline the cognizance also and he can discharge the accused. But अगर उसको लगता है कि non-cognizable offense बनता है, cognizable नहीं बनता, then he will move on with the case at the time of charge. Rather than framing the charge in the cognizable case, he will frame the charge in the non-cognizable offenses.
Okay. The second last question is there. An incident is reported in which a series of offenses which consist both cognizable and non-cognizable offenses. What will be the nature of investigation and trial? Series of offenses, both cognizable and non-cognizable. Series of investigation and trial.
As per section 155 clause 4, if in the series of transaction, few offenses have been committed by the accused are cognizable and few are non-cognizable, then we will consider that matter as cognizable offense under section 155 clause 4. जो cognizable offense में हम FIR में करते हैं वही सारी चीजें करेंगे, वैसे ही ट्रायल चलेगा. So we will consider it as a cognizable offense and a cognizable case.
The last question is, what is a deemed complaint? What is a deemed complaint?
Actually, if I'm not wrong,
in what context you are asking deemed complaint? I didn't get it.
Let me explain it further. He's asking actually, a police officer takes up a case, in a cognizable case, okay, and later on after investigation, he finds out it is a case of non-cognizable offense. Thereafter, when he has to file it, as a charge sheet. He has to file the charge sheet. Then what will be the context? I think, if I'm not wrong, the question is this: it is related that it is related to the complaint of the officer who started, the case as a cognizable offense, but later on, at a later stage, he himself finds out that it is a non-cognizable case, and the case is registered as a non-cognizable case. That charge sheet will be converted into a complaint made in.
Mr. Abhishek, in this case, the police official will file the charge sheet as they usually do in all the cases. But when this fact will be come into the knowledge of the magistrate, then the magistrate will deem that charge sheet as complaint. So that you can call that is a deemed complaint, because
Indeed.
that is not an actual complaint.
Indeed.
And it has written in section 2D, explanation of section 2D.
Exactly.
Mr. Bansal, can I ask you some questions put by the participants also?
Yeah, sure. Why not?
Okay. The first question I am putting before you is from the side of Dr. Parantab Das. He is asking, can you throw some light on witness protection scheme? Witness protection scheme.
See, witness protection scheme is basically related to the DLSA, that is Legal Services Authority, in which, like, if you will see in Delhi, then if the witness is a vulnerable witness, then there are different rooms are there, different courtrooms are there, जहाँ पे उसको accused नहीं दिखता, ठीक है, वो सारी चीजें उसमें हैं. विटनेस के लिए अगर वो बच्चा है छोटा, तो उसके लिए ऑफिसर्स अपॉइंट किए गए हैं जो बच्चा पहले उनके पास रखते हैं, 2-3 घंटे उनके साथ खेलते हैं, उनके साथ बात करते हैं. वो सारी चीजें आती हैं विटनेस ये इसमें वेलफेयर स्कीम में.
Yes, apart from that, basically it's a part of judicial activism. लॉ कमीशन ने कुछ रिपोर्ट्स फाइल की थी और सुप्रीम कोर्ट के कुछ जजमेंट्स है जिसके बेसिस पे लेट लैग ऑफ 2018 में एक स्कीम चालू की गई थी, विटनेस प्रोटेक्शन स्कीम. इसके अंदर बेसिकली सर अगर एक विटनेस को ये फील होता है कि आई नीड प्रोटेक्शन, देन ही कैन फाइल अ एप्लीकेशन टू द कमिश्नर. इफ कमिश्नर थिंक दैट कि विटनेस को प्रोटेक्शन की जरूरत है, then whatever Mr. Bansal says, that sort of relief he can get. पुलिस की व्हीकल मिल सकती है, डिफरेंट प्रोटेक्शन मिल सकता है, वीडियो कॉन्फ्रेंसिंग में हो सकती है, एक्यूज से उसको इंटरेक्शन नहीं होना हो. such type of remedies that will provide by the police administration, as well as such type of remedies provided by the jurisdiction of the court. So basically it's a scheme directive by the Supreme Court जिसको states ने adopt की है. I hope it's clear now.
Okay. The second question from the side of participant is about what are the possible reasons for the police to not register an FIR. It's from the side of Ms. Arushi Kankaria.
See, there is one data. जैसे हम कहते हैं कि देश की GDP होती है, वैसे ही एक क्राइम का इंडेक्स होता है हर पुलिस स्टेशन का. बहुत प्रैक्टिकली चीज बता रहा हूँ आपको कि हर एक पुलिस स्टेशन का एक क्राइम का इंडेक्स होता है कि इस पुलिस स्टेशन में कितने क्राइम हो रहे हैं और ये पुलिस स्टेशन किस कैटेगरी में आता है. तो हर पुलिस वालों को, हर SHO को, उनको यही होता है कि हमारा पुलिस स्टेशन ज्यादा क्राइम इंडेक्स की लिस्ट में ना आए, कम क्राइम के इंडेक्स में आए और हमारे यहाँ कम से कम क्राइम रिपोर्ट किए जाएं, सो दैट दे ऑलवेज ट्राई टू रिजॉल्व द मैटर एमिकेबली, ताकि वहीं पे रिजॉल्व हो जाए. दैट इज बेसिकली ये दो रीजन है. एक तो ये कि एमिकेबली यहीं सेटल हो जाए मैटर. दूसरा, अगर उनको ये लगता है कि ऑफेंस नहीं बनता तो वो नहीं करते, ताकि क्राइम रेट है जो अननेसेसरली पुलिस स्टेशन का जो इंडेक्स है वो ना बढ़े. दैट इज द बेसिक रीजन बिहाइंड इट.
The third question is from the side of Mr. Karan Srivastav. He is asking what are the expectations from a private counsel for complainant if he or she is hired by the complainant to assist you.
Being a prosecutor, I'll say the duty of the counsel of the complainant in the criminal trial is that you just have to make sure that your witness or your complainant is very well versed with the facts of the case, कि केस में आपने कंप्लेंट में क्या लिखा हुआ है. समटाइम्स यू विल सी कि उसमें 4 कंप्लेंट्स होती हैं कंप्लेनेंट की, बट कंप्लेनेंट को पता ही नहीं होता कि मैंने 4 कंप्लेंट्स दे रखी हैं. तो हम यही एक्सपेक्ट करते हैं एक प्राइवेट काउंसिल से जो प्रोसिक्यूशन को सपोर्ट करता है, कि आप अपने विटनेस को वो सारी चीजों के साथ वेल वर्स्ड करके लेके आए कि आपके ये फैक्ट्स हैं जी, आपने ये कोर्ट में बोलना है और ये क्वेश्चन आपको डिफेंस काउंसिल पूछ सकता है, और ये दीज आर ऑल डॉक्यूमेंट्स ऑन विच यू हैव साइंड, लाइक अरेस्ट मीमो हो गया, पर्सनल सर्च मीमो हो गया, कोई सीजर मीमो हो गया, साइट प्लान हो गया, कि किन किन डॉक्यूमेंट्स पे आपके साइन है, कब कब आपने इन्वेस्टिगेशन ज्वाइन करी है. अदरवाइज एल्स अगर नहीं भी वो करते, अगर सपोज करो हम एक्सपेक्ट करते हैं ये, अगर उनके पास प्राइवेट काउंसिल है, अगर वो नहीं भी ये करते, still this is the duty of the prosecutor to do all this. We are having the NAP codes for all this. We always direct the NAP code कि इनको स्टेटमेंट, इनकी मेमोरी रिफ्रेश कराई जाए. हम उनकी मेमोरी रिफ्रेश कराते हैं, हम उनको डॉक्यूमेंट्स दिखाते हैं. वो सिर्फ हमारे लिए ये है कि वो आसान हो जाता है हमारे लिए थोड़ा सा काम, अगर ये डिफेंस काउंसिल ये कर दे, सॉरी प्राइवेट काउंसिल ये कर दे. अगर
one participant named Suyash Verma, he is asking, I had listened about that IAS in a district has also judicial powers and he has to work to maintain law and order. So if in a district by any reason, if there is no judge to trial a case, so how does an IAS have the right to take part of that trial, or he has no power? Basically, he is asking that does executive magistrate like IAS has any power in judicial side?
See, there are no powers of, like, there are different offenses you can say, like CRPC 107, 151. वो जो मैटर है वो एग्जेक्टिव मैजिस्ट्रेट के पास ही चलते हैं. अगर आप देखोगे 107, 108, 109, 1010, all the bonds which you will file before the executive magistrate, executive side पे ही फाइल करोगे, और उनके पास यही जुडिशियल पावर्स हैं अंडर सेक्शन 107, 151 सीआरपीसी. ऐसे जो क्राइम्स हैं वो जिसमें स्पेसिफिकली उनको पावर्स दी गई हैं वही डील उसमें करते हैं. अदरवाइज अगर आप कहो कि वो ये क्रिमिनल ट्रायल जो पुलिस रिपोर्ट पे क्रिमिनल ट्रायल है, दे आर नॉट हैविंग पावर्स फॉर दिस. अंडर सेक्शन 167 अगर आप देखो तो उसमें लिखा हुआ है कि बाय चांस कोई ऐसी जगह है जहां पे जुडिशियल मैजिस्ट्रेट छुट्टी पे है और पीसी जेसी ग्रांट करनी है, तो उनको पावर सिर्फ 7 दिन तक की मैक्सिमम दी गई है. they can send the accused in custody only for 7 days as per section 167 अगर पुलिस वाले प्रोड्यूस करते हैं उनके सामने उसको. सो सेपरेट पावर्स आर देयर, अलग अलग पावर अलग अलग बंदे को दी हुई है. जैसे इंक्वेस्ट की अगर हम बात करें अंडर सेक्शन 174, इंक्वेस्ट की पावर है जो वो दी गई है. और डीएम को पार्ट जैसे सपोज सेक्शन 97 है सीआरपीसी का. सेक्शन 97 इज बेसिकली, मुझे नहीं पता आपको कितने लोगों को पता है, सेक्शन 97 को हम कहते हैं मिनी हेबियस कॉर्पस. उसमें भी डीएम को पावर दी गई है, डीएम को, एसडीएम को, जुडिशियल मैजिस्ट्रेट फर्स्ट क्लास को. सो देयर आर स्पेसिफिक सेक्शंस इन विच आईएएस जिसको हम कह रहे हैं, जिसको हम डीएम कहते हैं, डिस्ट्रिक्ट मैजिस्ट्रेट कहते हैं, उनको जो पास दी गई है उसके स्पेसिफिक सेक्शंस आर देयर, उनको वही सेक्शंस में पावर है. अदरवाइज जो नॉर्मल पावर जुडिशरी के पास हैं जो ये ट्रायल कंडक्ट करने की, वो जुडिशरी के पास ही है. बट फ्यू पावर्स आर आल्सो देयर सम्मन करने की, ट्रायल करने की, कुछ ऑफेंसेस में उनके पास भी है.
Okay.
I just want to add one thing. I want to say one thing to Mr. Suresh. Kindly go through chapter maintenance of public tranquility, public peace and tranquility in CRPC. You will be able to understand the question the answer in a better way. And the process to compel the appearance. I think it is chapter 10, chapter 8 of CRPC. Process to compel the production. Okay, the powers of executive magistrate will be much more clear in those chapters. Okay, please continue.
Yeah. The second question is also from the Mr. Suyash Verma. He is asking, he wants to know something about custodial death case procedure. Custodial death case procedure in the court. I mean, does the court held the inquiry or department will conduct any inquiry? Custodial death case procedures. Mr. Suresh Verma.
Under section 176, we deal in the custodial death. The inquest report will be prepared by the magistrate. After preparing the inquest report, then the magistrate will record the statement of all the witnesses who were there, who were present there at the time of incident. उन सबकी एक एग्जामिनेशन करके एक रिपोर्ट भेजी जाएगी कस्टोडियल डेथ में. उसके बाद then department will take the action against it.
Mr. Karan Srivastava has asked, does investigation overlaps inquiry?
Does investigation overlaps inquiry? Yes.
Yeah.
Many a time. Suppose you want to say inquiry and investigation, whether they can overlap with each other. Yes, very well they can overlap. Suppose in a case the charge sheet has been filed by the police official. Because the charge sheet has been filed, now the judge will take the cognizance. So inquiry stage has started. Now under section 173 clause 8, police official can still conduct the further investigation and can file the supplementary charge sheet. आपको practical example छोटी सी देता हूँ. Suppose करो एक इसका illicit liquor का केस है या illicit किसी weapon का केस है. उसमें क्या होता है, illicit weapon के केस में हमें एक तो 39 आर्म्स एक्ट की परमिशन लेनी होती है डीसीपी से, एक हमें वहां से फोरेंसिक से रिपोर्ट आनी होती है कि ये गन चलती है या नहीं चलती. और यूजुअली क्या होता है कि ये रिपोर्ट्स या ये परमिशन जल्दी जल्दी नहीं आती. तो आईओ क्या करता है, चार्जशीट फाइल कर देता है, उसमें लिख देता है कि फर्दर इन्वेस्टिगेशन में और सप्लीमेंट्री चार्जशीट में ये 2 रिपोर्ट्स फाइल करी जाएंगी. तो इन द मीन टाइम जज कॉग्निजेंस भी ले लेता है, एक्यूज को भी समन कर लेता है, इधर से इंक्वायरी स्टेज भी चल पड़ती है, देन सप्लीमेंट्री चार्जशीट आईओ फाइल करता है उसके बाद. सो इन शॉर्ट इन्वेस्टिगेशन भी चल रही है, इंक्वायरी भी चल रही है. सो दीज प्रोसेसेस कैन बी ओवरलैप्ड विद ईच अदर, नो इश्यूज अबाउट इट.
Okay. Mr. Shivang Mishra has asked, what is the difference between judicial and police custody?
I have already said about it. Judicial custody is in the hard jail judicial custody. Police custody means जब accused को पुलिस स्टेशन में रखा जाता है ताकि अगर कोई वो डिस्क्लोजर स्टेटमेंट देता है कि मैं रिकवरी करा सकता हूँ जी डेड बॉडी की, मैं रिकवरी करा सकता हूँ जी मैंने वेपन कहाँ फेंका है, तो पुलिस वाले उसको कहीं भी ले, आपने को एक्यूज को पकड़ना है, वो कहते हैं जी को एक्यूज इंदौर में रहता है, तो पुलिस वाले 5 दिन की उसकी पुलिस कस्टडी लेंगे, उसको इंदौर लेके जाएंगे, उसको ढूंढेंगे, उसको पकड़ेंगे और वापस लेके आएंगे. जब जुडिशियल कस्टडी में चला गया, जुडिशियल कस्टडी में वो ये सब कुछ नहीं कर सकते. जुडिशियल कस्टडी में अलाउड नहीं है क्योंकि वो पुलिस वालों की कस्टडी में नहीं रहा. नाउ द एक्यूज्ड इज इन द जुडिशियल कस्टडी.
Okay. There is a question.
Yes, we have a question.
There is a question from Ms. Swasti Chaturvedi. She is asking, can there be further a new evidence of witness being produced in case as appeal as per CRPC?
I didn't get it, sorry.
Can there be a new evidence or witness being produced in case of appeal as per CRPC?
Yes, we can produce under section 391 additional evidence. You can move the application before the appellate court, but by moving the application you have to that you were not aware about this evidence or this witness during the trial. Now this witness has come. Suppose करो कोई एग्जांपल देता हूँ छोटी सी. Suppose करो ट्रायल के टाइम एक विटनेस था जो अमेरिका चला गया था, वो एग्जामिन हो ही नहीं पाया, तो फाइनली प्रोसिक्यूटर क्या करता है, उसको ड्रॉप कर देता है. ठीक है, 2 साल बाद केस खत्म हो जाता है, एपलेट कोर्ट में जाता है केस, वहां पे क्या होता है, वो विटनेस इंडिया में आ जाता है. तो आप एप्लीकेशन मूव कर सकते हो कि जी ड्यूरिंग द ट्रायल ये अमेरिका रहता था, अमेरिका का सिटीजन था या इंडिया नहीं आ सकता था, इसलिए इसको हम वहां एग्जामिन नहीं करा सके, तो अभी हम इसको एग्जामिन कराना चाहते हैं कि प्लीज हमें परमिशन दी जाए. तो यू कैन मूव एन एप्लीकेशन, आप वो कर सकते हो, आप एविडेंस भी प्रोड्यूस कर सकते हो, बट यू हैव टू शो दैट इन गुड फेथ that you were not in the position to produce that evidence or that witness at the time of trial.
That means there has to be a very good reason in good faith. That is why you were unable to produce the evidence in time during the trial.
Mr. Suyash Verma is asking how narco test can be a part of the criminal trial. Narco test.
See, these days a number of judgments has come. जैसे आजकल आज अभी लेटेस्ट जजमेंट आई है कि रितेश सिन्हा की लेटेस्ट जजमेंट आई है सुप्रीम कोर्ट की। तो सुप्रीम कोर्ट इन सभी जजमेंट में जैसे उसमें कहा गया है कि वॉइस सैम्पलिंग का टेस्ट है जो वो सारी चीजें करी जा सकती हैं आज के सिनेरियो में, ठीक है, विद द परमिशन ऑफ द कोर्ट एंड विद द परमिशन ऑफ द एक्यूज्ड, दैट कैन बी यूज्ड इन द ट्रायल।
Mr. Sanidhya Jain is asking, wouldn't Panchnama be part of charge sheet? Panchnama.
Yes, Panchnama is the part of the charge sheet. What is Panchnama? पहले ये समझो Panchnama क्या है। पंचनामा कुछ नहीं है, पंचनामा सिर्फ ओनली द डिस्क्रिप्शन ऑफ द प्रॉपर्टी है, ठीक है। मंजीत सिंह की जजमेंट थी जिसमें कहा गया था जब भी आप कोई केस प्रॉपर्टी रिलीज करोगे देन यू विल मेक द पंचनामा अलोंग विद द फोटोग्राफ्स ऑफ दैट केस प्रॉपर्टी। आप उस केस प्रॉपर्टी के ऊपर फोटो लगाओगे और एक पंचनामा बनाओगे, डिस्क्रिप्शन बनाओगे कि ये प्रॉपर्टी है, जैसे मोबाइल है जी, ये आईफोन है जी, ये आईफोन XR है, इसका मॉडल नंबर ये है, IMEI नंबर ये है, इसका कलर ये है, ठीक है, इसका बिल इसके साथ लगा हुआ, साथ में विटनेसेस और वहाँ MSCM के साइन, जिसकी कस्टडी में मोबाइल होता है, वो सब चीजें, वो पंचनामा, दैट इज अ पार्ट ऑफ द इन्वेस्टिगेशन, दैट इज अ पार्ट ऑफ द चार्ज शीट।
Another participant is asking, Panchnama is same as memo.
See, you can say that Caesar memo हम कहते हैं, that is also a document. Panchnama is also a document.
I would ask Mr. Aditya to please specify or be more clear about your question.
So Aditya is listening here. Can you just elaborate your question on the chat box?
In the meanwhile, we can.
In the meanwhile, Mr. Visveshwari Matholia has asked, is there any point of re-examination also after the cross-examination? After
Yes.
cross-examination, re-examination.
You will re-examine the witness. Definitely, you will re-examine the witness after the cross-examination as per Indian Evidence Act. Evidence Act में लिखा हुआ है कि अगर क्रॉस एग्जामिनेशन में कोई ऐसी नई चीज आती है जो आपको नहीं पता थी या डिफेंस ने अभी डिस्क्लोज करी है, एग्जामिनेशन इन चीफ में नहीं थी और आप उसकी एक्सप्लेनेशन देना चाहते हो, then you can re-examine your witness and the defense will get the chance to cross-examine the witness again only regarding those facts जो आपने re-examination में की।
Ms. Neha Kumawat is asking, can you explain the jurisdiction of judicial magistrate, metropolitan magistrate, chief metropolitan magistrate in relation to complaint trial?
See, in complaint trial, judicial magistrate first class is the competent enough to try the matter. CMM और MM में कोई फर्क नहीं होता except the parts. CMM वो भी judicial magistrate first class ही है और MM भी judicial magistrate first class ही है, but CMM जो है वो he was the, सिंपल सी हिंदी में समझाता हूँ, he was the topper of the batch, इसलिए उसको CMM बना दिया और जो बंदा बेचारा 60वें रैंक वाला था वो MM है। CMM के पास एक्स्ट्रा पार्स ये होते हैं, उसके पास एडमिनिस्ट्रेटिव पार्स होती हैं। एडमिनिस्ट्रेटिव पार्स मतलब कि आप जब भी ये कंप्लेंट फाइल करोगे यू विल फाइल विद द नेम ऑफ CMM। CMM को फाइल करोगे तो CMM मार्क करेगा कि ये कंप्लेंट केस किसके पास जाएगा, ये केस A जज के पास जाएगा, B के पास, C के पास, या CMM खुद रखेगा उसको। दिस इज द डिफरेंस। दोनों होते जुडिशियल मैजिस्ट्रेट फर्स्ट क्लास ही हैं, पार्स बदल जाती हैं थोड़ी सी, उसको पनिशमेंट की पार बढ़ा देते हैं, CMM की एडमिनिस्ट्रेटिव पार्स दे देते हैं। आजकल जैसे एज यू ऑल नो कोरोना इज गोइंग ऑन, तो जितने भी आप देखोगे नोटिस आएंगे लोअर जुडिशरी के लिए, काफी नोटिस CMM निकालता है कि किस किस की ड्यूटी लगाई है या सेशन जज साहब निकालते हैं, ठीक है ना। तो CMM के पास वो एडमिनिस्ट्रेटिव पार्स होती हैं। ज्यूरिसडिक्शन दोनों की सेम है। जो इन एडिशन टू इट ज्यूरिसडिक्शन अगर आप उस रिगार्डिंग पूछ रहे हो तो ये भी हो सकता है कि जो आपके पास थाने हैं, जो पुलिस स्टेशन है, उनकी ज्यूरिसडिक्शन आपके पास है तो वो कंप्लेंट्स आपके पास फाइल होंगी।
Okay, the question session has been completed, and if anybody has then write on the post on the chat box side. Mr. Navneet, can you just carry forward?
Thank you, Mr. Saxena, and thank you, Mantul sir. आपने इतने सारे क्वेश्चंस लिए, क्लैरिफाई किया, पेशेंस के साथ क्वेश्चन सुने। In conclusion, I'd like to share some remarks which Mr. Bansal explained in their part, we need to understand, being as I am the private counsel, I can be a counsel for the complainant, I can be a counsel for the defendant. But the thing is, in criminal trial, the face value is always a prosecutor. So being as a private counsel, we need to understand that we are in court of law to assist public prosecutor. पब्लिक प्रोसिक्यूटर को हम जितनी अच्छी तरह से असिस्ट कर पाएंगे उतनी ही बेहतर तरीके से वी कैन हैंडल आवर क्लाइंट एज वेल एज आवर केस. अपार्ट फ्रॉम दैट, जो भी हमने ट्रायल में अभी स्लाइड्स में देखी है, इट्स अ लेयर ऑफ ट्रायल. अगर इस ट्रायल को हम प्रैक्टिकल एस्पेक्ट्स के साथ कनेक्ट करते हैं, वी विल एबल टू अंडरस्टैंड द थियोरी मच बेटर वे कंपेयर टू रीडिंग ओनली थियोरी. और अगर हमें थोड़ी सी भी थियोरी का इंफॉर्मेशन है, नॉलेज है, वी कैन रिलेट दिस प्रैक्टिकल एस्पेक्ट एंड ये हमारे स्ट्रगल पीरियड आफ्टर गेटिंग डिग्री उसको श्रिंक कर सकता है. सो जो इंटायर ट्रायल है, ट्रायल के बेसिस पे हम सजा दिलाते हैं, हम एक्यूटल कराते हैं. ट्रायल किस लिए इंपॉर्टेंट है? क्योंकि एक बेस होता है केस का. अगर ये केस का बेस करेक्ट होगा, आप सुप्रीम कोर्ट तक अपील में जाओगे, हाई कोर्ट में जाओगे, यू कैन गेट फेवरेबल ऑर्डर. अगर ट्रायल को सीरियस नहीं लोगे, अगर ट्रायल सीरियसली आप कोर्ट ऑफ लॉ के सामने प्रोड्यूस नहीं करोगे, क्वेश्चंस एंड पुट्स को क्लियरली नहीं मेंशन करोगे, यू विल फेस अ डिफिकल्टी इन अपील और चैलेंजिंग द ऑर्डर ऑफ द कोर्ट. So in conclusion, I like to say that कि जो भी issues हैं, जो भी trial के procedures हैं, indeed it's part of CRPC, relate with the IPC and Evidence Act. But the thing, it's a procedure. We need to understand the practical aspect of criminal law and the trial. Apart from that, it's a recent example. We are in the arena of COVID-19. राइट नाउ ट्रायल का प्रोसीजर एक कन्वेंशनल प्रोसीजर से थोड़ा चेंज हो रहा है. यू विल गेट नोटिफिकेशन फ्रॉम हाई कोर्ट, फ्रॉम सबऑर्डिनेट कोर्ट, जहाँ पे कहते हैं कि वीडियो कॉन्फ्रेंसिंग के ट्रायल हो सकते हैं, बेल्स आप आर्ग्यू कर सकते हैं. तो वी नीड टू अवेयर अबाउट द प्रैक्टिकल, कैसे हमको करना है. जो हमारा मोटो है, जो हमने इंट्रोड्यूस किया है प्रैकोलन के थ्रू, ये हमारा एक मोटो है. इसी के बेसिस पे हम इस चीज को आपके सामने ला रहे हैं एक्सपर्ट्स के साथ, ताकि यू कैन रिलेट योर थियोरी विद द प्रैक्टिकल एस्पेक्ट.
If you go through our previous webinars, we have conducted 3 to 4 webinars in this month only, May only, which are available on our Pracolun's YouTube channel. You will understand the importance of scope and professional skills, which our law students should have there in his should be there in a law student, and how it will complement his or her professional life. If you may allow, I would like to explain a bit about the importance of scope and professional skills. The moment you understand the scope and identify your goal, you will be able to work for a particular practical skill that will help you to overcome the challenges in the professional world and reduce the struggle period after getting degree. This I can even cite from my own. When I passed out from my GNLU, Gujarat National Law University, there was a clear-cut gap between the theory side and practical side. This gap is very vast among the students, and many students used to face this in a day-to-day after getting their degrees. So with this note, I would like to thank on behalf of Pracolan and Saxena's and Kumar Law Chambers to all the attendees, students, universities, colleges, and their administration for such a support. I would like to pay a gratitude to our speaker, Mr. Rajat Bansal, for sharing his valuable experience and practical knowledge with all of us. I hope he will be sharing his valuable insights with us in future also. We expect that that our attendees must have benefited out of today's e-symposium. Our IT cell is constantly working, and we will be posting this session on our YouTube channel also. The YouTube channel is named by Pracolearn, Pracolearn, Pracolearn. So thank you all of you, and anything you want to ask, then chat box is there.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Bansal, once again.
Thank you so much, Rajat.
Thank you, Abhishek. Thank you, Abhinav, and thank you, Navneet. Thank you very much for inviting me on this platform and giving me the opportunity to share my views. Thanks a lot.